Hello and welcome. You're joining the July 26th, I think, meeting. Oh, let me start again. Hello and welcome. You're joining the Westford Budget Task Force for the July 26th, I believe, meeting. I'm going to ask for Valerie, the co-chair of the committee, to help out a little bit today since I'm in the car. I guess interesting things, and I'm sure there was more on the agenda to follow, but be interested in reflections from the listening session that we had, and also sort of the march of progress on working on our draft. And also the select board and the school committee and the finance committee, I think, are due for an update according to our schedule from us. We can discuss a little bit how we want to do that. I think probably a memo.
Hey, Tom. Tom, you're breaking up a bit. And now
okay. That's probably because
yeah. Okay. Well, you look frozen too. So I guess we can check. I think what he was saying was reflections, progress on the draft, and then to start thinking about what our updates to the joint boards would be. So I'm looking at the agenda. I also see approval of minutes. I don't know if those came out yet, so we can.
Yeah, we're trying to get organized on which ones are out there. So why don't we hold off on minutes till next meeting?
Happy to, no problem. Want to make sure everybody has a chance to look them over anyway. So we'll skip those. And the next agenda item is to review public input from the public forum that we had this week. So does anybody want to jump in with how they thought Monday went, or reflections, or responses to some of the community input we heard? Any learning since we'll be doing this again in September? Yeah, Erica, go ahead.
Hi, I thought, we did hear from one individual. Dennis had some good suggestions. I think that we should look into his suggestions on, I forget what the term is, consolidating with other towns nearby. And he volunteered that there were some experts that he had access to that could either talk with, us as a group or individually. And so I don't know if we wanted to have someone talk to us, or if I'm happy to go talk to that person and then report back, or bring them in with some highlights, whatever you want to do. But it does seem like it was something that he suggested that, for us to do our due diligence, we should really look into it.
I think following up on input we received from residents is an important part of this process. So maybe we could see how that fits into our sort of efficiencies investigations, and how that ties into what we learned from our own department heads, and then revisit that. That works. Anyone else on inputs from Monday? What were the final numbers, Kristen? Can you remind the full committee of attendees we had?
Yeah, absolutely. Apologies for joining late. We had 5 people in the room, one of which was a reporter, and 12 online. Valerie did make me aware that we had a bit of a snafu, that the link on the flyer was incorrect. And the link on the agenda was the one that was using. So I think people were confused. Either they found us or they were frustrated and did not join. So Dan and I will make sure to remedy that in the future.
I noticed too that the YouTube recording has 63 views so far. So I think that's promising too, that even if people couldn't find the time to join us real time, that they are curious and listening. And we have had a couple more entries into the feedback form since too. So hopefully that shows that, people are absorbing what we presented and reflecting.
And WCAT's morning email, I guess you call it if you receive it, they did highlight the Budget Task Force Forum and linked the video right there. So that might be part of our help there for those views.
Yeah, they did a nice sort of brief summary on the event. So
Valerie, I'll just chime in that I thought everyone who prepared on the committee did a really excellent job. So I think the quality of the presentation that we did, I think, was very good, and I think each of the individual speakers communicated a lot very clearly. So I think that was really well done. The next time we do this at the strategic retreat will be a really different format. We talked about that last night at the select board meeting. There really are going to be 2 sessions. We're one of the 2, and the group is going to split. All the attendees will split and attend first one and then the other. So we'll have a chance to meet with everybody who comes to the retreat. It also means that we may have up to 150 people at a time that we're working with. So we'll have to figure out how we want to work that. One idea would be that we basically each become a small group leader and have a prepared script that we use to kind of introduce people to the topic. And then we each sort of act as a facilitator for, say, 10 to 12 people, that evening. We'll have to prepare, but just, we're going to be one of the major spotlights at the event. And we'll just want to prepare really for each of us to be comfortable being an individual facilitator.
great points. Thanks, Tom. And anyone else? Christina?
I think my raise hand feature is gone for some reason, but yeah, I guess my only comment was that it would have been nicer if we had more people, because we really only heard from like 3 people that actually got up and spoke. We have gotten a lot of feedback on the form. I haven't checked it recently, so I haven't seen the last maybe 12 or so entries. I'm just, as we get closer to making recommendations, I guess I'm just a little concerned, and I don't have a solution for this. I just don't want there to be a huge backlash from residents who were like, where's this coming from? What happened? Again, don't really know how to solve that, but I think we're doing all we can. So anyway, just wanted to share my concerns.
Go ahead, Erica.
Just seconding what Christina said, but I do want to share that one of the attendees did share with me that she was she found it very difficult to find out where she knew that this was going to happen, but she didn't know how to find it. And so she expressed a little frustration that it wasn't better publicized. I didn't pursue further about what outlets should have been gone to, but I'm just sharing some feedback that I got personally. So maybe we need to do some brainstorming for the next one to just make sure that we are reaching out as far as we can.
Go ahead, Jana.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was a little disappointed we didn't have more input, because I was really hoping that earlier in this process we would get some more catapulting points, things that they really wanted us to look into as a general public, so we could try to. Yeah.
Your audio was really garbled for me. I don't know if it was for everybody else. Okay. I don't know if that's something to tweak on your end. Do you want to try again?
Is that any better? No.
Well, Shana's trying to figure out her audio. Erica, are you able to follow up with that person to see kind of where they get their news? Do they follow the website? Do they follow Facebook? Are they looking at the League of Women Voters? I think specifically asking people, so where do you go to get your news? And then we're going to have to go to those places, but we currently don't know where those places might be. Or if they did have trouble finding it on the website, then we know we have to do a better job internally. So if anybody's hearing this feedback, it'd really be helpful for us to know if we can ask those pointed questions. So how do you like to get your information, or where do you get your information, or how could we do better to outreach rather than just, okay, we'll take that under advisement?
That's a great point. Go ahead, Amy, you raised your hand.
No, I think I was just going to say something similar to what Kristen was saying. I think, Valerie, before you created your social net. Before you, I don't think I knew what was going on, to be honest. And I think that you do a really great job reaching out via social media. But I don't know if I wouldn't have known where to look before. So I think absolutely asking people in which ways would be really helpful. And I know we only had a few people, but it was just nice to see people. And I thought they were super kind, appreciative, and they had some great feedback. And so that I thought was great. Obviously, it would have been great to have more, but I agree. I don't know what the answer is of where people want to get anything anymore. But I think that's maybe not our charge, but maybe something to consider too.
Is that audio any better? The headset in?
No, so weird.
I take the video off. Is that any better? No.
That's
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. Fade into the darkness over here.
Nope.
No, but I think at least, I don't want to repeat what they were saying, but I think at least I feel more hopeful about people watching the YouTube video, because that at least says that there's some follow-up interest in watching what happened for those that couldn't. So that makes me feel a little bit better. But I was just trying to say that I was hoping we would get some more immediate input at the beginning, because I think a little bit to your point, Christina, or maybe adding on your point, is I'm afraid that we're going to get input so far late in the process that it's going to be hard for us to pivot and cover the things that people want if we don't hear about it up front. So I was kind of hoping for a little bit more of that. So I'll stay off video for.
I think one of my own reflections was that what I've been hearing from a couple of people who did listen in was that the headline of that list of budget challenges and having the numbers attached to them was really eye-opening. And so I think that as that headline sort of permeates the community a bit to really start absorbing that there's like an $8 to $10 million like list in front of us, I think that might help really share the scale of the problem that we're working on, that I think we have been accepting, but I'm hopeful that as that message sort of grows, we might get more interest into September. And it's, as to Shana's point, it's not as early on in the process we would like, but I think that might help for the next forum anyway. Go ahead, Christina.
So a couple other things, just listening to people. Valerie, I think you're absolutely right. I think getting that $8 to $10 million range out there, I think will hopefully kind of wake people up to this issue. I think it's probably also a good idea if we're floating that number to give it in context to what a normal year is like. Because some people may not have been paying attention. They may not understand that $8 to $10 million and $130 million budget is really a big deal, right? It's 10%. They may think that's not a big deal. Number one. And then number two was, I wonder if it's a little difficult for people to give input if they haven't been following the budget and they kind of don't know what's out there and what the options are. You know, we got some of that feedback on the Google form. So, maybe as we kind of flush out some things, maybe we can throw out some more ideas on, would you be upset if blah, blah, blah happened, or, something along those lines to get people kind of thinking, this is a big deal and we're going to have to make some changes, right?
Yep. I think that's a really good point too, that as some of these ideas start to become more concrete for us, that sort of getting reactions to those could be a powerful next step.
Right. Or even if they're examples from other communities, maybe they don't quite translate, but here's some things that we see other communities doing that cost them less. I'm thinking efficiencies wise, right?
Sure. Yep.
Or here are some other communities that pay for blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yep. Great. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll move us on to the next agenda topic. which some,
Can I just get clarification?
Sorry.
I think I can go ahead and talk to Dennis and at least find out who those people are and what it is they think, so that we're going in parallel, not not serial, because I think we're going to run out of time. Getting whatever information we can. Does that sound appropriate?
I think that's fair. I guess in my head, I was just waiting for the, what I know is coming in the update from the benchmarking and efficiency group, which is sort of interviews that are hoping to happen soon. So in my head, I thought maybe that works if you are interested in sort of jumping in onto the interviews for the public safety part and sort of dovetailing that with this follow-up with Dennis. Does that make
Sure.
sense? Instead of having like one person do that, but we also have
Does make
these.
sense.
Yeah. So Christina, if you want to kick off the updates from that working group, that would fill in the context that I have that Erica doesn't have yet.
Sure, and actually, I'm gonna ask Kristen to unmute as well, because so let me back up. And about a week or so ago, I sent out emails to all of the major department heads asking the questions that our group had come up with. I've heard back from a few of them. Some have been questions, asking exactly what kind of information I wanted. I have gotten some information back, but not quite everything to really set up the interviews yet. I was kind of hoping for that to happen next week. But I'm not 100% sure, because I hear that some department heads want to speak to either me or somebody else from the benchmarking team to get a little more clarification before they do a deeper dive. So that may delay things a little bit. I am speaking with Jennifer Claro tomorrow afternoon at 1, because she's going to be on vacation the following week, and she said, no, this is good to talk tomorrow. So I do have a meeting set up with her. She's the Council on Aging or the Senior Center Director. So Kristen, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, or if I kind of covered.
I think that's a really good summary. I would just add, I briefed department heads last Wednesday at a department head meeting that this would be coming. I think a lot are very shocked about the amount of data that we're asking them to look at in the benchmark municipalities. And some are hesitant to do that deep dive without having that initial conversation of what are we actually looking for. So I've urged them to reach back out to you, Christina, or anyone on our team, to have those conversations before they start banging their head against a wall and trying to determine what we want based upon an email rather than a conversation. I think the conversations are a lot more helpful related to that. So I can tell you that they're definitely working in the background on this. It's just a little bit of a shock to most of them. I'm trying to coax them through it, that it's going to be okay. There's a lot to it. I think a lot of department heads, and no one has said this to me directly, but I'm getting a little bit of a feeling, are, oh my gosh, my budget is going to be cut, or I'm going to have nothing for next year, or they're against me, or they're going to give all the money to the schools. And I've been very clear with people that I believe that our committee is very level-headed, and we're looking at this from a 360-degree view. And I have had no indication that the schools are going to take everything, or that this budget task force is going to give everything to the schools. They're looking at this very holistically of what is best for the town of Westford, the residents, the students, the employees, and all of that. So I just wanted to give that context in case any of you are talking to department heads and they do seem a bit hesitant. That may be the impetus for that hesitancy.
Yeah. And I'm happy to have those conversations. I in my email to them, when we asked for them to compare other towns, I tried to be, I'm not asking for them to do a deep dive. I'm asking for them, with their knowledge of their department, to go look at these 5 or 6 other communities, and does something jump out at them that they're doing something different than we are. But maybe that didn't quite translate to them.
Shana, do you want to try sharing a comment?
I'm gonna try. Can you hear okay?
It's still a little garbled, but go ahead. See if you can get it out.
I think, to Kristen's point, I see why people across departments are going to be nervous, but I do think that we also need some suggestions, right? And probably before Christina reached out last week, we didn't quite know that we're looking for like $9 million. To Christina's point, it's like 10% of the budget. That's a lot of money. And so we really need every department to pull back a little bit. They can't necessarily just say, oh, no, there's nothing we could do. We really are going to need, schools included, right, for everyone to come back with something. Some place we could look into more revenue, some place there might be an efficiency, some place there's a cut. Because if we just go, no, this is going to make it increasingly more challenging for us to present things to the select board, to the community, and the various boards about what we can do to close this $9 million gap. So I know we don't want people to be nervous, and I think we need to be pushing back as much on schools as everyone else, but I do think we need some productive feedback from every department about if the back is against the wall, like this are some areas to look into, or this are some areas that we can maybe make some adjustment.
I muted myself. Thanks, Sheena. I also I want to circle back to Christina, but I don't want to lose in this thread that we expect this same sort of process to happen on the school side as well. It's just that data set is a week or two behind sort of the timeline that Christina and the town's data set is on. But Christina, do you want to circle back at all? Do you want to open up for, I know you're looking for some help.
Yeah, so once we get to a point where we are going to be interviewing with the department heads, and this is kind of more for the benchmarking and efficiency group, I did send out an email asking for others on the team to sort of take a lead on 1, 2, whatever, some of the other departments, or if anybody on the other side, and the revenue side, has a little bit of bandwidth, it would be great, because it's going to be a lot for me to try to do all of those. And I don't think that's a good idea anyway, for one person to do all of that. I don't mind being a consistent thread across, just to sort of, keep that consistency, but it's going to be a lot to take all that data in and sort of process it. And I think more eyes are better than one to try to come up with different ideas or different things to do.
Erica?
Yeah, I'm just going back on what you had suggested earlier, Valerie, that, maybe I could sit in on I'm volunteering to maybe sit on the public works area and, try
Public
to.
safety?
Public safety, sorry.
Yeah.
And just try to navigate
Sure.
between Dennis's suggestion and them and see if I can, get any ideas there. I do also want to volunteer that, I think it's a tough thing we're asking the department heads here. I mean, no one wants to step up more than their colleagues and take a bigger hit than everyone else. I don't know how to navigate that, but it's human nature. We're asking them something really hard. So we just have to be aware of that, I think.
Okay, a lot of hands, and one of them is chair. So Tom, if you want to, I didn't realize you were back home.
I'm back in the office. Just from having done these benchmarks studies in Westford and elsewhere, sometimes just starting off and saying we're also looking for things to celebrate about things that we're doing that are really efficient, and it's entirely likely that when we come back after looking at this, we're going to see that maybe there's a few things that we can do that are more efficient, but there may be some things that we can highlight as real successes here in town. I think we're going to want to present that in the report too. What are some steps that we've taken recently to become more efficient that have generated gains? And the only other thing is that you also may want to frame some of these in terms of service level. Like we did a public safety benchmark study maybe 6 years ago and concluded that we didn't have adequate coverage either on fire or on police, just because the nature of what it means to be a first responders changed. There's a lot of new responsibilities. There's a lot of new protocols, which are really good and help people, but require more manpower. For us to make a significant cut in public safety, for example, we would probably have to take a step back to a totally different service level, which would be, not having a patrolman on the streets at night. So one way to frame it is just sort of, we can even look back at history and say, what was it like before we made this change? How is the service to the residents different? Because I don't think we're asking people to like accept a cut in salary or use fewer paper clips or something. I think most of the big differences that you might see in the benchmarking or that we might uncover is really a question to the public. Like, what level of service do you want? So I don't know if that helps diffuse the kind of witch hunt feel of going and having these conversations, but at least sometimes you can sort of disarm people by just sort of laying things out in that way when you start.
Shayna, you also had your hand raised. I know you switched your mic.
I tried to switch the mic. Is that any better?
It starts off good, but then it gets garbled again.
I think it would be helpful, if possible, for someone on our side, on the revenue side, to sit in with you guys when the efficiency group is doing their interviews, if it's possible, because I think just a different perspective, right? We haven't been in the weeds with the data the same way, and so maybe we might think of other questions that get lost in the fact that you guys have been so buried into the numbers. So I think it would be great, if possible, to be able to align more than one person to sit in on those calls. I know, Christine, I talked with you about being on the fire department one specifically.
Okay, thanks. Jenny, you have your hand up?
Yes, I just thought about something because Erica just volunteered for the public safety. Probably one person need to sit for the like a fire department, ambulance and dispatch and police department all together, because the interrelationship between these departments and keep the consistency for public safety. So, just one thought.
Yeah, I'm happy to sit on those, because the ambulance was one of the other items that Dennis had raised, so it would be just for thoroughness.
Great, that's helpful. And not to put people on the spot, so I guess if you can think about reaching out to Christina, if you can take the lead on some of the other departments, that would be helpful. A quick update, I guess, on the school data is that I've looked at the overall function code analysis, and I'm starting to get a little bit of one-on-one, excuse me, one-on-one input from some people. And I'm starting to think about who makes sense on the school side for some interviews and follow-ups as well. So that's should have more of an update maybe at the next meeting. Anything else from the benchmarking and efficiency work group? We want to switch over to the budget challenges and new revenue.
I saw that Shanna gave a couple of things in the, okay. I was looking in the chat. So Shanna's done a bunch of excellent work, but since her audio is having a little bit of a trouble, maybe I'll give it a shot. So we're basically finishing up. There's a couple items that we're still looking for input on, like some of the town fee stuff. I think we want a little bit more resolution on how we look up relative to other communities, but by and large, I think we know kind of what the opportunity sizes are on the new revenue side. And I think we're closing in, Dan, on the quantifying the budget challenge areas in terms of dollar value. I know that we're maybe most of the way there. I don't know if you feel like you're pretty confident with the ranges, or if there's a little bit more study to do there.
There's definitely some more study to do. We did hear back from our health insurance broker the other day. So he sent us some data that we need to first look at, probably with his help as well. And then we can start to sort of populate those years in the outlying years. So he did give us a projection as well. So Jeremy and I have been working on union projections for salary wages. So we're almost there with the last group to set up the template and whatnot. So we should be able to start working on those prior to our next meeting within like a week. And then some of the other projections we're there on some of them. And I believe we're taking the solid waste and recycling to the select board in August for your review. So we'll have the numbers to be released then. And then the schools have some contracts as well that they, I don't know if Jenny's raised her hand for that or not.
Jenny, do you have a comment about the,
For the Unit A contract, hopefully we can hear something back from the union about the voting result for Unit A's contract negotiation. So we will keep everybody posted for any update we hear back from them. And Unit E is still in mediation, so that's something still pending over there. That's another thing we are waiting. And so next meeting for Unit E has not been scheduled. So that's another thing we are kind of waiting.
so we know the cost of what the Unit A contract would be as proposed.
Yes, we do.
I'm sorry, I don't know this, but does Dan have a dollar number from you for each of the 3 years of the contract?
Yes, we do have fiscal year 24. I can do a calculation for fiscal year 26, 25, and 26 and send a final dollar amount to Dan.
That'd be great.
Right, we just want to make sure that it's not public until it's
Right.
ratified, but yeah, I think that's internally fine.
We could also kind of blur the edges of it a little bit. We're not gonna be releasing individual salary levels, so sort of, even if that just helps us give us a range of what the dollar impact would be, I think.
Yeah.
That would help. I guess the other thing I'll mention is that we're populating the draft document that Dan created. One of the next things that would be valuable to me and Shanna would be getting your feedback and questions that occur to you based on the data that we have there. So in your quiet moments, if you have a chance to look through that, and if you have any questions, I think to stay on the right side of open meeting, it's better if you email us directly with the questions or email the relevant people. So if I'm looking at the benchmark and I have questions, I will try to email the relevant benchmark folks directly. But yeah, I think we can all do a kind of cross edit as this document sort of develops over the course of the next month. But aside from that, sort of polishing up the budget impact numbers, completing the revenue ranges and sort of descriptions, I think we're mostly in document mode on that side of things. I don't know, Shannon, does that sound right to you in terms of where we are?
I think so. I don't know if that, but yes, I think that's correct. And I will paste our information into the master probably over the weekend if I don't have a chance to do it later this week. So, but I think we're just about done, but that would be until things roll in. So hopefully that also does maybe free up some of our time on our side, help the efficiencies folks.
Okay, I think we got most of that. Most of that, maybe not all. If you have something you want to make sure we get, maybe you could put it in the chat. We'll make sure we capture it that way. Eric, I see your hand. I think it's related to this.
Yeah, two things. One is just making sure that the document you're talking about is the version that I proposed for the outline of the report. Is that the document you're talking about?
So Dan,
Another
Dan,
document.
Dan,
do you want to explain the document and just remind people how they can access it?
Yeah, so I sent out a share actually yesterday to every member of the committee. So it's basically your outline that you had, Erica, used as the basis, and then just to fill in, I actually marked on there which subgroup should be entering in that information. But it looks like we already had some people work on it. So I see your budget task force work plan in there, so that's great. So did you put that in?
I put that in.
You put
I
that
was
in,
in it
Kristen.
this
Okay.
I was in it this morning, so that was probably me.
Okay.
Okay, and then the other thing I want you to point out is I'm also working on the tool that we're going to use to try to pull all this together so we get a handle on our budget gaps and how well the items fill them in. And I think I'm gonna be able to work with the IT department. Kristen just gave permission for that this morning because it's kind of bogging down on my home computer because I'm running like 10,000 scenarios for the Monte Carlo, so it just takes a bit. I do want to point out, so this, I haven't raised this, I think in public, but on my form that I submitted to join this group, did point out that I'm going to be gone for the month of September, which really sucks because there's so much going on in September. But for the use of the tool, I think I can try to get the IT department to understand exactly what happened. I mean, how to use the tool, how to update the tool, etc. If there's someone else on here who's proficient in Excel, I'm happy to do it with you too. I'm just putting that out there.
I'll volunteer to work with you, Erica, if that's all right.
Oh, good. Oh, looks like we were going to meet anyway for the other stuff. So yeah, that's perfect. Great.
Dan can add to his already Jedi level Excel skills.
Yeah, this is new to me, so I'm eager to learn.
And also, I don't know if there's any value in, so I'm coming back on the 29th of September. And so the document and presentation are going to be really close to done. Maybe the document would already have been put out. So if you want like fresh eyes, I'll be coming back and ready to, to look from a green perspective on whatever's happened in September. Just saying that if that's of value, then I'll be here to do that.
Great, thanks, Erica. Any last questions for the new revenue and budget challenge piece? Okay, back to you, Valerie.
Oh, okay, well, next on the agenda is action items for the draft schedule. Is that the doc, Kristen, did you put this on the agenda? Do you want to jump in on what you had in mind?
I think we were just reviewing the draft schedule at every meeting just to make sure that everyone
Oh, okay.
was all set with that. Dan, would you just bring that up on the screen if you don't mind?
Great, thank you.
1 second here. It's loading.
While we're here, we could talk about the way that the update to the various committees. So the select board is obviously very interested in both how we're doing in terms of schedule, but also the beginnings of what we're finding. I think we can give them an update. I can draft a memo basically for the three impaneling committees, sort of explaining where we are in the timeline, what we're doing next, and sort of the activity flow. One thing we could do, but I'm a little bit reluctant to, one thing we could do is we could give them a link to look at the draft document as it's evolving. We may want to pick our moment in time carefully and say, okay, we actually want to freeze a different version, make it a PDF, label it draft, not have a lot of people accessing the document. But yeah, we're going to be kind of on the teeter-totter of wanting to supply some of the things that we found, but wanting to be careful about sharing things that aren't quite done. So it may be that we share a limited version of the stuff we feel comfortable with, that we feel is unlikely to change. It may be that we give them a date that we think we can give them more of a draft data if we're not feeling like we're ready to do that. So I don't know how people feel about how ready we'd be. I think we can at least give an overview, and we could say, for example, we expect the draft to be reviewable by the end of August. I don't know if that feels like a safer plan for us. Christina looks like she's nodding. Yeah, Christina?
Definitely for the benchmarking and efficiency side, personally, I don't think I would be ready at all in 2 weeks to put things into a document. I still feel like I'm sort of swimming in all this data that hasn't really solidified into recommendations that I'm super comfortable with yet, because they're still at the, oh, that's sort of interesting, let's look at that stage. So I just wouldn't want to put anything out there that then turns out to be completely undoable. Do you know what I mean? Or have a big shock value to somebody.
Or cost more. Like, I mean, there's one or two
right.
things on the school side that I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if that district did that for efficiency or for other reasons and may not actually come out to be cost savings, but yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree that take, I mean, when I think of like mid-August for an update to the 3 boards, I'm thinking a little bit of Monday night's presentation, just sort of with another layer of detail that we have at that point. You know, I think it would be helpful to start grouping some of the new revenues into level of impact, right? So that because the list looks really impressive. And then, like you said, I know we had talked about like, what's the scale of some of those, and even just as a visual on the PowerPoint to be able to say, here are some that, you know, might have this much impact, but here are all these little ones or one-time fund impacts. And then I think in 2 weeks, we would be able to give updates that at least that some interviews have happened and some, you know, some promising leads are coming out of the benchmarking. But like I said, similar to Christine, I don't know what that will feel like yet. 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out.
So
Yeah,
we're
maybe-
looking at maybe a joint meeting August 15th with school committee, select board and finance committee, if that works. The select board is not having an 8th or a 22nd meeting.
I guess,
Yeah,
Kristen, I'm wondering if we could do the update. I'm thinking maybe we just prepare a document that we circulate to them. And instead of, we could also do a live update. I guess we could do it either way.
I think a live update might get to more of our residents, right? So we're trying to find ways that they might listen or hear. I know there's a lot of frequent flyers on the select board meeting, but perhaps if we put that out there, that there's another opportunity to listen at that meeting, we might get more participants. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Okay, why don't we try that out in terms of availability, and another way to think about what we share when is to back up from October 1st. So typically people like to have a draft report, not a draft report, but a report in hand to study like a week before the meeting. And so that means that we would have the benefit of the strategic retreat. And we have a couple of weeks to process that. And then we would probably publish what we think is near final, the 3rd week or end of the 3rd week in September. So I think it's perfectly reasonable that we would spend this update sort of orienting people to the process. And then maybe we can give sort of a first look at some things in early September if we feel like we're able. But I think we just need to probably push back and say we need the time to put this together in the right way. And we'll make sure you've got a draft in advance of our full presentation so you can dig through it. But there are sections that you probably will see for the first time in that release. We may be able to release some, but does that sound right in terms of expectation setting?
Dan, can you bring up that Gantt chart or the easier to follow chart, just so we can all look at it and see if we're still on track? So we're in column F this week.
I was just going to say, while we're looking, Tom, that what you laid out sounded reasonable to me.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I'm being bullied a little bit into sharing information, but you've stiffened my spine. I feel better about saying, no, we'll stay on schedule, but we're not going to go early.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we wanted to show some work output. Our draft, Tom, is probably in a fairly good enough state, especially if we give it a once over in the next week or two and the team gets to review it, to maybe share the revenue portion, like, so that it looks like, hey, yeah, we've got something, it's like 25 pages of information that's like progressing. Because I don't think ours is going to shift a lot other than potentially adding anything new that comes up from the efficiency side. So just a suggestion there, if we wanted to show something more solid. Ours is pretty, and you and I could obviously have a hard and fast date to clean it up and make it a little bit more presentable too.
Yeah, it also might be beneficial to get the budget impact part, budget challenge part out, so people can begin to get their heads around it because it's such a big number.
And also on the revenue side, if there's anything they want us to dig into further, that might help to give us some more time if they see something and they want more information to be included in the report too. And hopefully this is working better. I dialed it in my phone, so.
Yeah, no, it's perfect.
Yes,
Sounds
much
great.
better.
All right.
To be honest, I haven't looked at the draft, but, well, sorry, Christina, why don't you go first? You had your hand raised.
Just a thought, we could have something from the benchmarking area. In that document, or present it some way at that joint boards meeting in a couple of weeks. I would just need help sort of putting that together, because I wouldn't want to send them to that entire spreadsheet. That's a little crazy. But possibly some sort of charts showing where we lie spending wise in relation to the other communities on the town side. I think that would be fine. If that would make sense to anybody.
I think that sounds good. I can't offer to help, but maybe someone listening.
I think
can.
some of those visual charts that Vibu has been helping us, if we clean them up and are very confident with them, they might be helpful.
Yeah, and I actually haven't been able to connect with Vibu. He was having trouble opening the file. Last I knew, I sent him an email yesterday or the day before asking if he was able to get in and redo the Tableau information for that benchmarking data, and I haven't heard back. So I'm not quite sure what the status of that is. But yes, if that was ready, that could be something.
Maybe Tom or I can help reach out and connect.
Vibu does have a new email address, so maybe I'll circulate that around so everybody has it. So I think that might be the issue.
Okay, thanks. Shayna, did you have your hand up from before or new?
Can figure it out.
Okay. Go ahead, Erica.
I just on a separate thing, Tom mentioned before that Dan had sent out something yesterday, and I did a search on my Gmail. I didn't get anything, so I don't know if anyone else is in that boat. I didn't see anything sent out yesterday.
So when Dan sends it right from the OneDrive like that, it ends up in my spam. So you just gotta check that. Ends up there when you send the shared link. Originally that happened too, so maybe check there.
It usually doesn't. I usually don't have anything go to my spam because
I don't either, but I found his there this morning, so Justin.
Yep, and I see, Erica, I see your email listed on there, so.
Okay, all right. Yeah, well, I'll look. Okay, good. I'm glad it's there. Thanks.
Mhm. Sorry, I moved a screen around and lost the agenda. Draft schedule. I think we already covered the next agenda topic, which was interviews, right? It was kind of embedded in the efficiency working group update. We got some requests for help, but could use more. So reach out to Christina if you can step up there. And then that would bring us to future meetings. Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
I guess two things there. One is, if we have one more minute, I just wanted to spend a little more time on getting ready for the September strategic retreat, if that's okay. Future meeting wise, I'm going to be on vacation the next 2 weeks and can do some work. But Valerie, I don't know if you're available to chair the next 2 weeks.
Actually, next Wednesday's a little tight for me with our usual time. I'm like just not totally sure what time I'll be getting back from being out of town myself. So I don't want to commit at the moment yet without chatting with the rest of my family, I guess.
We could decide to just sort of stay in our work group. It sounds like we've got plenty of work laid out for us in our individual work groups. So we could also decide to not meet next week. Maybe just a straw poll about.
We're getting lots of chat that next week is a popular vacation week. So maybe that makes sense to just kind of regroup as working groups keep chugging along. If you find that you don't have something to chug along on, I think there's plenty to be shared with like Christina's list, or maybe the school's interviews will start shaping up too. So okay,
Wow.
I don't know if anyone's in town next week, so.
Okay, sounds like we're not meeting next week, and we'll meet
Okay.
in. And then just thinking ahead about preparing for this strategic retreat. So the good news is we'll get in front of all 300 people who will attend. All 300 people will get channeled through some experience with the budget task force. The exciting and challenging part is just figuring out how we're going to manage that. The working concept now is that we would each become a facilitator and convene a small group, probably organized around the tables. We would have a decent amount of time, something like 40 minutes, maybe a little bit more than that with each sitting. I guess the question is, do we feel like the 10 of us will be enough? I guess 11, because people will be there too. I mean, that probably works. I mean, that means that you'd have 10 to 12 people in each one. What we do ahead of time is prepare kind of the opening, sort of 10-minute opening presentation that will lead into the questions with the group. So I don't know if there's any reaction to that or concerns about that in terms of planning, and if we want to recruit any more people, sort of deputize more people to help here. Kristen?
So this will be my first retreat, which I'm very excited to go to. I'm not sure, Tom, if you and I should be facilitating a group or not. Being the town manager and being the chair of the select board, would we be, pulled away by other people or other matters? So I just want to bring that to the group's attention. I'm happy to do whatever, just kind of thinking about the event as a whole. There will be another session going on at the same time in small groups related to the MBTA communities multifamily zoning. And then there will be tables around the tent for others to visit. So again, happy to help facilitate here if that's proper, but also just want to keep in mind that it's an overall town event where we might have other duties or other commitments related to that.
Yeah, typically the town manager needs to be running the event because things come up. Ice cream warms up, all kinds of things come up. So I think the select board usually during the sessions can be embedded in the session, but yeah, Kristen, you'll have to be focused on that. I don't know if there's anybody else in a finance related job in town. I'm thinking of like Christine Collins or somebody else who may be able to come up to speed enough to help facilitate a group. Maybe more. Go ahead, Valerie.
I was just going to ask before we go too far down on sort of finding enough facilitators, is one thing that I think can be a double-edged sword with the small groups is acoustics, right? So like if each picnic table is sort of having their own conversation, at least I'm remembering picnic tables. I think that's what it was. I think sometimes that's almost too small a group, right? So I'm just trying to figure out what the sweet spot is between, like I remember last year it was like, one person with a microphone giving a presentation to the full tent, and that sounds like what's not happening. We're gonna have the multi-zoning at the same time. So that would be like on half the tent, and then budget task force would be the other half of the tent.
That's the working theory, and you raise a good point, and maybe a really good idea. We could decide we're just going to break it into 4 groups, and we'll have 2 for each, which might be better in terms of having 2 people hearing everything that's happening. So we have some flexibility, and
Yeah,
it's probably a better idea than what I started with, but just want to get in people's heads that it's going to be a relatively large group, and we need to figure out the best approach.
yeah. We've got some hands up.
In my ignorance of not having attended this before, so I'm glad that I'm making the change to attend this year, even if it's for a specific reason. Will people have the opportunity to like swap what they are talking about? Because I feel like it's really the MBTA community piece, especially from a revenue perspective, is actually a really big portion, I think, of what our report may end up putting in as a higher revenue source. So just wanted to make sure that people that wanted to listen to that didn't necessarily get omitted to listening to what we are doing too, because I think they're actually really both, and they're intertwined.
Yep, it'll be a swapping.
Yep.
Go ahead, Christina.
I was just going to add that if we did need more people, if everyone thinks it's appropriate, I can already think of at least 2 finance committee members who might be interested and are probably pretty up on everything. I know one of them has been watching our meetings. So just throwing that out there, if we need more people, I could certainly reach out.
Great. Amy?
I just wanted to point out that Erica said she's not going to be here in September. And
So for counting bodies.
Tina is not going to be there physically, right? So I think we have like many less than you think we have, Tom. So it's a really good point to bring up. I think we'll definitely need a couple of bodies for sure.
And I actually will be back.
Oh, yay.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Or sort of.
Yeah. Go ahead, Erica. Oh, you're muted.
Thanks. I did want to point out that I'm not here in September, but also I want to say that, you know, in prior years, I remember having small group conversations where I was able to talk and I felt they were fantastic. I thought they were the most engaging of our retreats when people felt they could be heard, you know, and they felt like they were having an input into the process. And I thought that was really impactful, just, you know, both personally and, you know, from the people I talked to. I thought that the small group was highly effective. And I think a lot of people in, you know, it doesn't take it to get very large before many people will feel self-conscious about bringing something up. They'll say, oh, I don't pay enough attention and I shouldn't, you know, I'm sure this has already been talked about, and they won't say what's on their mind. Whereas if it's a small group and they feel they can, they're more likely to embrace the final product if they feel like they got to have some say, or at least be heard, even if it doesn't get reflected in the final output. So I'm a big fan of the small group, of course, you know, recognizing it. I'm not here to help out. So you know, take that for what it's worth.
I guess one other thought I'm having too is you said maybe about 40 minutes, Tom. So what if there's sort of a mix where like you give sort of a quick overview or something to the half of the tent, but then then each of us would sort of find a seat at the each picnic table and sort of jog some reflections and reactions after that. I just think 40 minutes might be a lot, like at us individually at a picnic table.
That's really good points and some things that I hadn't thought about. So why don't we just keep this a discussion topic? And we'll have a couple meetings that we can nail this down, but I guess maybe at the next time we're together, if we could identify the folks that we think could be facilitators. I think if we've got 12 people that could be facilitators, then I think we can be a little bit flexible about, do we have a little bit larger groups with 2 facilitators, or do we, you know, organize some other way? I think we're still nailing down kind of the details of the event too, so we may have a little bit more clarity of exactly what's going to happen.
Erica, your hand is still up, was it?
Yeah, I had something to say and now I just got lost thinking about what Tom just, oh, I know what I was saying. Now I remember. Yeah, so just thinking back again to other retreats that we've had. Another thing that was really, I thought, well done and I forgot the topic, but there were pieces of paper on the table. So if we are, you know, on our effort, we discover that there are, you know, potentially contentious issues that we want to get input on, having like, you know, something that, you know, please prioritize. If we had to make cuts, you know, how would you prioritize these, or, you know, whatever it is, something that might be difficult and maybe even difficult for people to voice openly because they would be afraid of being judged, but having little pieces of paper out on the tables that people could, you know, check off and maybe put in priority order or whatever it is. That's another idea. Just putting it out there.
Yep, great. Thanks, Sheena. Sheena?
I was going to your point, Val, we could also maybe look at something where like we split between the budget, but the efficiencies and the data and the revenue and the challenges, and we could switch tables. So we could have 2 groups of people. Each of us could talk about our parts and discuss our parts for half the time, and then we could swap the tables ourselves, like the 4 of us get up and move, and then we could repeat the speech with the second group of people too. So there could be another way to make it seem like we're not all having to spill so much space and time. I don't know, just another.
Yeah. Great thoughts. Anything else? Okay, so it sounds like we'll skip August 2nd and plan for August 9th. I am able to run that, Tom, if you're still away. And then I guess each working group can decide what works best for them, if they need meetings in between or not. Anything else? Okay, I guess we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Great. Okay, I wrote down some names when I thought I was going to be taking a vote. So roll call. Kristen,
Aye.
Dan,
Yes.
Tom,
Aye.
Christina,
I.
Jenny,
Hi.
Shayna.
Aye.
I am an I. And Amy and Erica, you're both alternates? Did I have that right? Okay,
Yeah.
and then so one of you can vote if who's not here. Is that how that works? Okay, so Erica.
Aye.
Okay, great. All right. Thanks, everybody.